coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Good morning, Brett. How are you? Welcome to Coaching Call.
I'm great, thanks. How about yourself?
Exceptional. Getting better every day, my friend.
Love it. Love to hear it.
Yes, sir. So you've done a lot with your life, and it's a pretty extraordinary life that you've led. I'd love to get into who you are. Let's get to know you so that people can realize the importance of what you do and how you help so many people around the world. Tell me, where were you born? And
I'm from Orange County, California.
Oh. California?
Orange County, California. Yeah.
Very cool. And who influenced you before the age of 10, 15?
I'd say a big influence on me is really my grandparents, my parents. I think being surrounded by an amazing family really helped me get to where I am today. You know, there's a lot of nature versus nurture, but that's a big part of it. And I try and lead by example, not just by things that I say, but by things that I do.
I love that. That's the right way. I think that's the way we should all live our lives, right?
Yeah.
Lead by example. You talked about your parents and your grandparents. They probably had a little bit of a different influence on you. Who would you say was the biggest influence out of all of them?
Honestly, they're both pretty. I couldn't choose one or the other. Just they're very different.
Right.
So
tell us about the differences.
Yeah.
That would probably be a good way to go.
So yeah, I would definitely say that my mom has always been, I would say like I don't want to say the caretaker because they've always been different, but my mom's always very energetic, always has a smile on her face. She's a very positive person. And yeah, I mean, my dad, he's very business oriented. He's very, to the point, very concise with everything that he says. And, they've been extremely supportive in my life. And I think they complement each other very well. They're very, very different.
Mhm.
Like my dad, when he's by himself, he'll talk to everybody. But my mom's around, he's very quiet. He lets my mom do all the talking.
Yeah.
But education and family and just respecting others, that was a big part of, what they instilled in me growing up. And same with my grandparents too.
Mm. Sounds like your dad was a very smart man. When your mom was talking,
He is.
He stayed quiet. That's a good
Yes,
thing.
he is a very smart man. Yes. But then when my mom's not there, he'll talk to everybody. So it's kind of funny how, he knows his role.
That's pretty cool. So you grew up in California, and obviously New York has become a big deal for you.
Mhm.
Tell us when did you guys move from California? When did you move from California?
So
What was
they're
that
still
trip
there.
like? What was the whole?
Yeah. So my mom's from New York, my dad's from Philadelphia, and I grew up in Orange County, went to school at Drexel University in Philadelphia. So I lived where my dad went to school, where he lived, where he grew up. And then I moved to New York. So now I'm here where my mom grew up. So yeah, and that was right after college. So I lived in California for 17 years of my life, went to school in Philly, and then moved to New York, been here ever since. So
Mm. Tell us about some things that helped you understand who you are as a human being during your childhood.
I think when tough situations arise and I see how certain people handle it,
Mm.
that to me is what's most impressive, because when things are going well, everybody can just, of course everyone's happy, it's easy, but when things are tough, how you react to it, that's really, I think, what builds character,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, without a doubt. Um, your background that you're showing us right now, you're an artist, so you
I don't know about that, but
Tell me when did you even start doodling? When did you start drawing? When was that? When did that happen for you?
so I can't draw. I'm not artistic at all. But like I don't know what year, maybe like 9 years ago or something. It was the worst snowstorm, single day snowstorm in the history of New York that was
Mm.
recorded. And I couldn't get out of my building. All my real estate clients, everything was canceled for a while. And so I was like, all right, well, what can I physically do? And so I learned how to animate. I literally spent the next 20, 25 hours. I didn't sleep. Like I think I went the entire day without sleeping. So it may have been actually 25 hours. I'm just learning how to animate in the next couple days because I still couldn't show. Everything was canceled. People could get into the
Mm.
city. And I just kept learning and learning and learning. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. If that snowstorm didn't happen, I wouldn't never learn how to do this stuff. So
So 25 hours learning how to animate.
it took me longer than that. Just when I
No, but
first
just to
started,
start,
I was
right?
I was in the zone. Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty cool. When you think about you went to Philadelphia for school. Did you go for architecture? Did you go for interior design? Did you go for business? Did you go for math? What was your major?
Those are all actually, I thought about majoring in math as a kid, but those are all majors that would make sense. I majored in communication.
Mm,
Technically public relations, even though I was always doing sports broadcasting, TV, radio, journalism. So they kind of let me create my own major essentially, like I could take certain classes and everything. But I think legally it was I got my bachelor's in communication. So
I believe that's probably one of the most important things that we are missing in most of schooling, if you will. I think communication is one of the biggest aspects that we need to get into and even nurture. And even once we get out of college, to continue with that. How has communication served you?
so I think communication is a major. I know people say it's a kind of a joke and it's very different, but I think being in that major, being able to take a lot of different courses and then the communication professors that I had that really influenced me a lot. I think that was really crucial. I don't know if there's a specific major based on communication or the way it applies to today,
Right.
because look, in any type of business, relationship, the lack of strong communication can end things. And when you have very strong communication, it can really propel things. So I think communication in general is really important. I don't know about the major itself
Right.
applies specifically. I don't think any college has that aspect, because they're more focused on whether it's PR or journalism or radio broadcasting. So it does other things, but I will say that when you have good communication skills and you're able to speak openly with others,
Mhm.
sometimes you're having these difficult conversations. It helps you grow if you're able to get past that point.
Yeah, yeah. So if you think about communication and negotiation,
Mhm.
I think, man, they go hand in hand, don't they?
Oh, they do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that, well, I mean, I always learn like the first person who speaks loses in negotiation, right? So, it's one of those components where you really have to listen to what someone is saying, and not just listen, but like active listening. Someone could say the words of something and mean something totally different based on the gestures they're using, based on their eye movement, all these
Mm,
different things. So, yeah, I mean, communication, negotiation, and business, everything else, they're intertwined with one another.
yeah, yeah. When and how did you get into real estate?
So the true story is that so
Uh-oh,
this
we
is
got the true
my
story? I love it.
this is my 16th year doing real estate, and I got into it because I gave myself 3 months to find a job in New York, and I was applying everywhere. I was applying to
Mm.
McDonald's, hotel restaurant, or hotel management, Abercrombie and Fitch. I was literally applying everywhere, and there was a job fair in Herald Square, and there was a sales job fair, and I just felt that real estate, that's what, of all the things there, I never even thought about doing it ever.
Mm.
A couple people said in college, "Oh my gosh, you'd be great for real estate," but I wasn't really into it. But when I got to that college fair, I was just like, real estate, of all these different options, this kind of seems like it would make the most sense. So got my license, went from there, and here we are.
Well, it's very interesting. Before we had a pre-call before we came on the show. Um, I had already seen you. And how did that happen? Oh, wait a minute. Wasn't it Bravo? Weren't you on
Oh,
Bravo?
yeah, I've been on a couple of these shows over the years, and for me, it's whatever. Some of my clients, I mean, actually, my clients care more than I do.
Right.
Like I'll get texts from friends. Oh my God, I see you, and oh, you didn't speak, but I saw your face for 10 seconds. I'm like, it's just kind of funny. For me, it doesn't make a difference. I'm just, a lot of this stuff isn't real. Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but okay, I did anyway. So it's just funny. You see the people that you're friends with, and but it's fun time. I will say it's fun time. The crew, everyone's really nice, and just a different experience. So
Right. So if anybody's listening, just when you get a chance, look at Bravo's $1 million New York listing, and you were featured on it as well. But just being on the show, that's going to help business, isn't it?
I mean, I guess
Oh,
I don't
come
really think
on.
of it in that respect. Look, I think the events are fun, but I was asked to do a couple more, some others, and it doesn't directly relate to getting more clients. You have to do a little bit of everything. Like social media alone doesn't necessarily get you clients. It's what are you doing with that? Or
Right.
what I like to say, it's more of a resume than anything else.
Right.
So yeah, no one's reached out to me. Oh my God, you were on TV. But when I'm working with people, and everybody looks people up, and they're like, oh, okay, he's done this and this and this. Oh, he's done these videos. He does this real estate, all these other components. And I think that's really what it
Mhm.
does. But it's fun. I like being on TV. It's a good time. But when I'm in work mode, I don't really care about TV. I'm focused on, how can I
Oh,
help
of
my
course,
clients
of
the
course.
best way possible? Yeah,
You can't serve your clients if you're worried about television. You have to be focused on the clients. Um,
absolutely.
when you consider, with all the agents in New York, just New York City, forget the boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and so forth. Not everybody gets to be on television. So there had to be something that happened.
Well, I feel
Tell us
like when
about
you're in New York City, you're always on television, or no matter where you are. They're always
of
filming Law
course.
and Order, all these movies, TV shows. Like you find out 8 years later, oh, that's me in that scene randomly. Um, you know, I don't really think of it like that. I just kind of, do what I can to help people in real estate, buying and selling and investing and whatnot, and go from there. It's just a process that I enjoy doing. But
Mhm, mhm. So you've been in it, were you in it during the 2008?
I started 2010. So
So you just
March
recently.
2010. I just celebrated my 15-year anniversary last month.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because a lot of people who, were in real estate in 2008 totally got out, and they went for something entirely different.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I do know a lot of people that did that, and it's crazy because the rental market was actually, I mean, it was struggling, but the rentals were so ridiculously cheap. They're offering so many incentives.
Mhm.
So that's actually how I started. I feel like it's a bad time to get into real estate, but for rentals, I was doing a decent amount. I think that, it was a good way to get introduced.
Yeah, right, right. New York happens to be one of the most expensive real estate markets. Why?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been approached to this question a lot, and
Mm,
more so, what makes New York City so special? And I think in one word, in just one word, it's accessibility.
mm,
And what I mean by that is that, I mean, any restaurant you want from any type of place all over the world,
right.
the subways, it's easy to get to Washington, D.C. or Baltimore or Philly, New York, Boston. Everything is so accessible. The cultures, the languages. I think they say Queens as there are more languages spoken in Queens than any other place in the entire world,
Mm,
and that's only a part of New York City. So I think just it's like a melting pot of the world. So much going on. With the Wall Street stuff, the finance stuff, but the arts, the sciences. I mean, sure, there's not as much nature. You do have Central Park, which is so crucial for New York City, but that's why I say like the word accessibility. If you want anything, literally, you can find it here.
oh,
And
sure.
that's why I think people love it so much. Places are open till 4 or 5 in the morning. You can find, if you're a painter, if you like fashion, if you like shopping, it's everything is there for you. So I think that's why it's so expensive. Um, I love it. It's an amazing place. It's really special. It's never gotten old for me. I never look at the skyline and say, it's okay. I'm always
That's
thinking about, it's beautiful. I enjoy it. I'm very grateful for it and never take it for granted.
Yeah, I personally love New York. I used to work on several places in New York, interior design and architecture. I used to work in Soho. I used to work in
Yeah.
the Village. I used to work in all different places. And one of the things that was pretty cool is that I was able to help people create beautiful spaces that they lived in, or
Mhm.
office space that they were working in.
Yeah.
And it was so incredible, when we can go into somebody's, blank slate, if you will, and create something that they would be something of their dreams, right? That we help put it together. When you think about, real estate, I think that, a lot of times, because we used to work with a lot of real estate agents as well, it's it's having the right connections to make that happen for that person to say, "Hey, listen, we have the right architects to recreate the space, or we have the right designers, or we have the right furniture stores," because they're all over,
Mhm.
right? So having those connections, how important are they as a real estate, individual like yourself?
I think just having connections to anything. I mean, furniture, there are some people who can do a better job than others, but one of the things I've stopped doing is if like with architects and contractors, there's a lot of amazing ones out there, but here's the issue. When I refer somebody, I only refer them if I know for a fact
Mhm.
that they're going to do an amazing job, right? So, with that, when people are looking for renovations, this is the thing I get the most. Do you have any good contracts and everything? There's three components to renovating an apartment, a townhome, whatever the case is. And here they are. So one is how long it's going to take, the
Mhm.
project. Two is the quality of the project. And three is the price. Most of the time, a strong majority of the time when I was referring people, they would hit two out of the three.
Mhm.
I've really never seen 3 out of 3 happen, and sometimes it's not the contractor's fault, sometimes it's the building. You're waiting for all these different documents, but when I refer somebody and it's not all 3, it makes me look bad, like, "Oh, Brett, they did a great job and, the price was fine, but it took 7 extra months."
Right.
Or, I mean, "Look, they did it on time and the quality is great, but it cost 50% more than they told me." So,
Mhm.
I don't do a lot of referrals, like, I real estate attorneys and lenders that I work with a lot. So it's important to be able to connect others, different people. I don't just like give someone a referral just because. I need to know that they're going to be able to do a great job. And sometimes the buildings don't let them. Sometimes there's different circumstances. It's not their fault.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, if I'm sending the referral, it's supposed to be as perfect as it can possibly be. So
Yeah, yeah. One of the companies I used to work for, I don't even know if they're around anymore. It was called the Space Design Group, and they were so elite that if you actually came in and you wanted to hire them and you wanted to know the price, they would walk away. That's how exclusive they were. They were like,
yeah,
if you're going to tie us down to a price, no, because take a look at all the work and the work that they did. I mean, we did Trump's penthouse and Trump Plaza when he first started it, and there was one individual that we worked with. They had three floors. They had the penthouse and the 2 floors below it, and we did every little thing, including their bathrooms were 18 karat gold, everything. The faucets were every little thing. They even had a museum in their one of their floors,
yeah.
and it was those kind of clients that they had. I mean, I don't know if they're still around. I left that industry back in 92. So that was a while ago. That's
Yeah,
when I said I'm not working for anyone else. I'm doing everything on my own. So
I
that's
get
when I
it.
became a true entrepreneur, and I've never worked for anyone since. But when we look at the different neighborhoods, even in New York City, and they've changed back from when I used to negotiate that area so drastically. I mean, you have Alphabet City to Harlem, to Spanish Harlem, to Black Harlem, to the East Side, to the West Side, and I've been in
Mhm.
all of them. Um, the dynamics of those places truly um, emphasize the wealth or the lack of, right? Because you could be on the East Side, in the '60s, and there's a lot of wealth there, or you can go by Central Park. Um, but then all of a sudden you go to different neighborhoods like Hell's Kitchen, and it used to be different, but now it's come up, right? I used to work at the Ziegfeld movie theater back when I was a kid on 54th Street. It's gone now, but if we think about it, is a city that doesn't sleep, but it is a city that thrives on creativity, unlike what you did with your 25 hours when you had that snowstorm,
Oh
uh,
man.
right? But it's the creativity that allows people to thrive in such a city. How do
Right.
you find the different neighborhoods now, and how is it negotiating for clients, even people who want to come to New York and find a place, and they've never been to it, but they just know they need to have a place there. How do you help them negotiate that?
So each area is really its own state, its own
Mhm.
feel. I mean, y- you know, sometimes there's like a major avenue and you're like, west of it is totally different than east of it. Or even, like north of 14th is definitely different than south of 14th. And then which part. So I like to think of them like when there's certain areas, you really get a feel of the different areas. It's amazing, you know? And what I tell people is if they aren't too familiar with New York City, this is what happens a lot. When people are buying for the first time, they hear about Soho, Tribeca, and West Village, and they're so hung up on this idea. And I ask people, I'm like, look, do you absolutely have to be in this location? If so, I understand. But most of the times, if people are not familiar with New York City, they don't have to be. They just think it's going to be great. And then I'm like, all right, well, let's look at other areas to get a feel for everything. I think that's where it comes down to like the listening to what they're saying and truly listening to what they're saying. But with negotiation, New York City is such a unique market. And I can't speak on behalf of other markets because this is, my only focus. But you have so many different submarkets. So let's say how's the market in New York City? And then how about in Manhattan? Well, how about in Tribeca? Well, how about Tribeca condos versus co-ops? Well, what about Tribeca condos for specific one beds? Or what about one beds with outdoor
Mhm.
space? What about one just with outdoor space and water views? And how about it, the updated finishes? And is it a loft? Is it only 8 foot ceilings instead of 11 and a half foot ceilings? All those things come into play in terms of the market. So when it comes to negotiation, it's so different from everywhere else. It's not like, hey, this is a house, it's built the same way, it's right next door. There's no difference,
Right.
right? Here, you can literally be the same exact apartment, just mirrored right next to you, and it could go for a totally different price point because then you have to think about what the market's like right now as well. Also,
Mhm.
what are the interest rates? And what's going on with these, with all these, the tax situation, these, tariffs, and that's had an impact as well.
Oh
You're
yeah.
seeing across the country that prices are going down for the first time in a while, pretty significant amount. I think Miami's struggling, a lot. Florida with all those new assessments going on. Um, y- you know, there are a lot of different variables. So something that's sold for, say 2 million today might only sell for 1.7 million in a year for the exact same thing. Or if it sold 2 years ago, maybe it's a lot more, or maybe a week because something happened. There's a new change in the laws in New York City. So
Mhm.
we're talking about negotiation and all that stuff. There's so much that goes into it. Understanding what's the market, because the real definition of market value is what somebody pays for it, right?
Correct. Correct.
It's not just the listing price. It could be, bidding wars, or it could be way overpriced. You don't know that.
Yeah. When I was working at the Space Design Group, we had a variety of people there. We had a young girl who was renting a studio apartment that only her bed, her night table fit in.
Mm,
And then she had a bathroom and a cooktop. And she was paying good money. This is back in probably 80, 88. And then there was another gentleman, same office, we all worked together, who invited us to his place on 90th and Park. I mean,
mm,
across the street from the I don't know, on the east side of Central Park. So 90th and on that road right before you hit the park. And we go in there, 12 bedrooms, the ceilings were 18 feet high. And I got lost. Now, these are two of the same people working in the same space, but their jobs are so varied, so different that
hmm
this guy was our media guy and our he handled all the high end clients. So his pay was astronomical, and the other girl was secretarial, and so she could barely afford anything, right? And this guy,
right.
it's lavish. But it goes to show that even people working in the same space, same office, can have different lifestyles. That's the beauty of New York. I lived in Queens for a lot of my life, and then I'm in Long Island now. And so for me, even here in Long Island, I see the difference of neighborhoods. Same thing when I lived in Queens. Um, so when you consider doing an analysis for a client, how deep is it your communication when it comes to finding out exactly their must-haves or not?
So I have them fill out a questionnaire, or I just read the different questions to them that I write down, so I know what they're looking for. But honestly, until you see 5, 6, 7 apartments or properties with them, it's hard to truly know. And that's I'm
Mhm.
like, look, you don't have to. Some brokers, they feel insulted, they get upset if the client doesn't like it. So I'm like, look, you can save all your feedback for after we're done with the showing, but let me know exactly what you think. I'm not offended by it. Remember, my job
Mhm.
is to help you.
Right.
Like I love financial district. It's my favorite area in New York City, and a lot of people don't like it. You know, some people love it, some people don't, and that's with a lot of areas in New York City. Some people are going to like it, some people don't. But it's not about me; it's about them, right?
Mhm.
So I tell them like, look, let's see some properties, and the more we see together, the more they tell me what they like and they don't like. That's where I can understand. Okay, I have a much better feeling now. But
Mhm.
sometimes there's a property they didn't like at all, and they tell me why, and then they see a bunch of other things and they realize, wow, actually, it's a really great property. I would say about a third of the time, the first property, about a third of the time. The first property that we see is either the worst of many or the best of many, and they
Mm,
just don't know it right away. Like you see, we see 5, 10 apartments. That first one, it's often the worst or the best. And it's because there's nothing else to compare it to. And that's why
right.
sometimes we go back and then it's gone.
Mhm.
I ask people, look, if this property went tomorrow, would you be upset? Would you regret it? Not
Right,
saying
right.
do you absolutely need to have it tomorrow, but would you be like, oh, and I missed out? And sometimes they're like, no, not at all. And then a couple months later, like, oh my gosh, I
I let
thought
that
I could have
go.
done it. And yeah, so I ask the questions, but sometimes they don't even know themselves. It's hard to
Mhm.
without educating yourself on the market. There are sometimes properties that they're not interested in seeing. And like you have to in order to educate yourself so you can compare to some of these other apartments. And they do that. And they're like, wow, that was actually really helpful. I'm not interested in this, but now I understand more of what value is for some of these other places.
Yeah, I love that question. How would you feel if this was gone tomorrow? Because it lets them understand that you did your due diligence, right? Because
Right.
if you just listen, if somebody's looking for a 5 bedroom or a 2 bedroom, and you're showing them a 10 bedroom, they're going to go, "This is great, but it's out of my price range, or it's
Hmm.
too big for me," right? But
Yeah.
obviously, you're not doing that, right? Um, when you start putting all this together for a person, how long does that usually take you? I mean, the reason I ask these questions is because it's so important to understand that it's not just like, yeah, I got a property, I'll show it to you, but it's about putting the analysis together, showing them what they're truly looking for. So how long does setting everything up, putting everything in place so that maybe you can show them 2 or 3 properties even in one day?
It depends on the type of properties they're looking for.
Mhm. Of
And
course.
also how long in advance do they reach out to me? If they tell me months in advance that, they're looking, I will start reaching out probably a week and a half in advance. You do too far in advance and they're just people
Yeah.
aren't going to respond.
Right.
And, because my job is to make sure that we can see the properties in like an order where we don't have to keep where it's not all over the place. Sometimes I'll have a car if it's pretty far away. Sometimes people like walking. It just varies.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like there are times where like somebody reached out to me this morning. They want to see something later today. I'm trying to get, I reach out to get access to it, but we'll see what happens. If not, we can look at things tomorrow or Friday. But people still have to be available. One, the brokers have to be available, and they have to be able to get access from the owners, especially if there are tenants involved. So
Mhm.
it really changed. Sorry.
That's okay.
Oi. So it really changes. This little girl is
There we go.
she's
Hello, hello.
yeah, yeah, she's she helps me get work done.
There you go. See,
But
it's
yeah,
it's important to have the right people or right dog in place.
she motivates
When
me.
you
She motivates me to get things happening.
nice, nice. Um, and let's talk about that. Let's talk about motivation,
Mhm.
right? Um, because sometimes um, you may show somebody a property and they're not motivated. And then maybe you show them 2, 3, 4, or 5 properties, and they're still not motivated. They're not they claim they love it. "Oh, this one's great, that one's great, this was great," but they're not doing anything. How do you handle that?
I guess I can't say I'm different from all brokers because I don't know exactly what people do, but a lot of things that I hear people see in coaching calls and seminars, I don't like putting unnecessary pressure on my clients
Right.
because in the short run, you probably have a better chance at closing them, but in the long run, you don't because they see right through that. My job is to protect your equity. My job is to ensure that I'm doing everything I can as an advisor to put you in the best position to get a specific apartment or property that you want. So
Right.
if they're not ready, I'm saying, okay, well, what's important to you about XYZ? What's important to you about the area, or what's your current financial situation? Usually I know that in advance. But ask the questions because I want to know exactly like where they are.
Mm,
If you're pushing somebody and they cannot afford it at this time, or they're in between jobs, or they're, other different things going on, it just makes you look immature, novice. And again, the likelihood of you closing them or getting an offer in the first week or two is going to go up a lot
right.
compared to being more patient. But if they don't do in that amount of time, they probably won't work with you that much because they feel so much pressure. And I
Mm,
want people to feel comfortable with their situation, with their position of, making the offer and potentially buying what could be the most expensive item in their portfolio.
right. 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 When you let's talk about the difference in brokers, right, or agents. And an agent can probably put both hats on. One is a selling agent, or a um, one that represents the property owner, or one that represents the person looking to buy, right? So a selling agent or a buyer agent. Um, tell us the difference between those, and how can people learn to understand the difference, and what's going to be better for them.
So the difference between a seller's agent and a buyer's agent.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the seller's agent has a fiduciary duty to the owner. So if you are looking for an apartment and you go directly to that agent, which sometimes people want to do, they think they're saving money, but you have no representation.
Mm,
So at best, that seller's agent can mediate, but they're never going to negotiate on their behalf. At least they can't legally
right.
negotiate on your behalf because of the fiduciary duty, the contract they sign with that seller. The buyer's agent, their fiduciary duty is to the buyer. So they are trying to negotiate the best possible deal with you, and for you. And so, I mean, and especially with the new signature, the new exclusive agreements you have to sign with different parties. All that really comes into play. But um, sometimes there are people who are really experienced. They don't want to use a buyer's broker, and that's fine. But I've heard of and seen a lot of cases where somebody goes without a broker, a buyer's broker, and they overpay for something a lot, or they
Mhm.
didn't know about a specific building, or it's a building that obviously had a lot of issues to begin with. They didn't ask the right questions, and then the attorney's doing due diligence, and it's like, there are so many red flags.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or certain things your attorneys aren't necessarily looking for legally because they don't have to, and it's just something that a real estate agent would know or somebody in the industry would know about the value of the property. Because the attorneys aren't gonna be like, "Well, the value should be this or this or this." They're looking at what's wrong, what's in the minutes, what could be wrong with the building. Very different components.
Mm. So, what's the difference between purchasing a home, and I know you do real estate in Queens as well. Um, am I right on that?
I mean,
Or
I
you
don't do
used
in
to?
Queens. I have.
Right.
Long Island City is probably we've worked the most, but mainly Manhattan and Brooklyn, I would say.
Okay. Or even in Brooklyn, right, if somebody's buying a house, a property,
Mhm.
and somebody's is looking to buy an apartment in New York City, what's the difference with getting it inspected, and paying somebody to come and do the inspection? Is it similar? Is it
Right.
different?
It's very, very different. So, and that's a great question. So, in New York City and, specifically in Manhattan, because there aren't really a lot of houses, everything's in as is condition. So, when somebody buys an apartment, like there might be some splits in the wood or cracks in this and that. And um, unless it's like electric or gas or something's not turning on, in terms of aesthetics, it's as is condition. That's how it is. So
Mm,
a lot of people don't get inspections on apartments. Now, if it's a single family or it's a multifamily, you have to. I mean, it's a totally different animal, and there's a lot that can come up. Just la- last year, I was working with a client. We put an offer on this single family, and it looked great. We negotiated the price down, and we were excited. But then after the inspection came back, we realized there's an extra $650,000 minimum that has to be done.
Mm.
So, I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But in regular condos, co-ops, if they're not in a townhouse, it's just a regular complex building. Some people will get it for peace of mind, and inspection, but usually there's not a lot of negotiation that's done after that. I've seen maybe a couple $100, maybe, oh, electric's not working, fine, well, or needs to be replaced, but most of the times not at all. With houses, single families, I mean, that's
That's
there's
huge.
often negotiation
Mhm.
after, yeah, because things that come up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about the different aspects, I mean, like you said, there was an issue of $650,000, so that saved them from maybe saying, you know what, either you take care of it, or you reduce the amount by that much, or we walk away, right?
Yeah.
What does that do to somebody who put a deposit, they get this inspection, and
No,
then they
no.
have to
So,
walk away?
so unlike other parts of the country, inspection happens before you go into contract.
Right.
I've
What do
never in my 15 plus years, I've never seen an inspection contingency on a property.
you
So I know they have them in Jersey. I know, like Jersey's right there, in other parts of the country, but yeah, it just doesn't happen that way. So if you're going to get something done, it has to be prior to going into contract, because no seller would ever, I mean, shouldn't say ever, but
Yeah.
I would never allow a seller to accept a contract that stated there's an inspection contingency, because I mean, anything can happen.
Right.
It's like, do your inspection beforehand. If everything works out, we can renegotiate the price if that happens. But once it's in contract, like that's it.
That's it. It's a done deal, basically, right? What incentives are agents allowed in New York based on the law?
When you say incentives, can you clarify a little bit?
Incentives by certain buildings, certain things of that nature, in order to. Um, hey, Jordan, thanks for watching, buddy.
What's up, Jordan? How are you? Love the hair.
Yeah. So, what I mean by incentives are agents in New York City allowed or asked by a building to come in and be their realtor of choice? Do we have different incentives like that go on?
I'm sorry. When you say realtor of choice, what do you mean
For
by that?
example, let's say I own a multi-story, let's say 20 stories, not a big building, but I want you to be my exclusive, I guess, exclusivity, right?
Oh,
Um,
okay.
are you allowed to get kickbacks based on after the commission and all that kind of stuff, or is that just am I just talking
So
nonsense?
if you sign an exclusive, developers, if they hire an agency, a brokerage, they're responsible for marketing, advertising that building. They get paid X amount for the deals that they do. So there are some incentives in terms of these new developments. So like, oh, hey, we're offering 12 free months of common charges and real estate taxes, or we'll offer 3 years of common charges and this and that, or waive all amenity fees if there are any. Things like that happen depending on the building. Sometimes they offer more commission to buyers brokers if they bring them there. Things like that. Absolutely. But y- you know, the- I don't know of anything where I don't know if it's legal to pay somebody after the deal closes to pay something else. Sometimes it's like, here's an additional, $2,000 Amex card if you bring a buyer and you close with us, or more incentives if you close three in a year.
Right.
Things like that. But they always present that up front, because
Got
then
it.
it goes in the deal sheet and the contract, everything else.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. We're just trying to keep it on the up and up, right?
Of course. Hey.
When And how does somebody because I remember I met Barbara Corcoran one time, and she talked about how she would get these exclusive deals, and it was based on her just walking into a place and saying, "Hey, this is what I can do for you," right? She started with
Yeah.
rentals too, as well. Um, is that something that's normally a practice for a real estate agent in New York City, or not anymore?
No, absolutely not. She is such a hard worker, brilliant woman.
Oh yeah.
I've learned a lot reading her books and just, she has incredible charisma and she's just an amazing, I don't think she practices anymore, but
Right.
she's an amazing person, amazing broker. So there's a lot to learn from that. I mean, you can't just walk in and be like, hey, give me a listing. A lot of it's based off of relationships,
Mhm.
your own branding. What have you done? But you can meet somebody at a coffee shop and then have a conversation. You end up getting a client. It's not that easy. There's a lot of different ways to get business now because before, there wasn't even the internet. You just go walk to somebody, and if you're the only person they know, it's not like they're putting stuff on Street Easy. It's not that, or Zillow, or Instagram or TikTok. Now it's changed completely. So I mean, that's really a big things have changed, but the mindset hasn't. I tell people, if you're only doing the marketing based on what it was 15 years ago, like when I first started, it's going to be tough to be successful because that's a dinosaur method. If you're trying to put stuff in New York Times ads and hope that a 2 sentence blurb is going to get you clients, it just doesn't work that way anymore. So you have to continuously evolve. A lot of people, they don't want to be on social media, but it is important. I'm not saying you can't do business without it, but if it increases the chance of you getting a buyer or a seller by even 2 or 3%, it's worth it. And if nothing else, it's a good resume to have so people know what you're doing. But I mean, that's really what, I tell people focus on, like, think about marketing. How can you represent your client the best possible way? If you want to get new business, you're going to have to, go to the Equinox or go to a nice club or go out to eat and just talk to people. I mean, for
Mhm.
me, I don't think about it. I meet a lot of clients randomly. Um, but I'm not like, a lot of times I'm not even actively trying to get business. It's just my natural self. I'll talk to a
Right.
wall for an hour, and if the wall doesn't start, melting like the paint off it, but that's just who I am. And sometimes I realize, oh wow, I just got somebody new. I didn't even think about it. So in that aspect, you can't just walk in and get business, but there's a lot of principles that I'm sure she followed then that definitely apply today. Like if Barbara did real estate again and was an agent, she could probably figure it out in like a couple months and understand, oh, this is how, okay, got it. And but it take time to adjust. I've seen people who are now CEOs of their companies or, you know, brokers of record, but they haven't done real estate. They haven't been an agent in a long time. And when they go back to it, it does take time to realize, okay, this is, they know most of it, but it's like, okay, I have to adjust to the market real quickly, understand, all right, this is what I have to do, and go from there.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that. Take a look at this, and then I'm going to come back with a couple of good questions for you.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael. What if I told you 90 days is all it takes to detox your body, clear your mind, and completely reset your life? Sifu's Mind Body Method is a complete system that blends movement, mindset, journaling, nutrition, hydration, and fasting into one powerful experience. This is your invitation to get stronger, clearer, and more in control from the inside out. Click the link and join Sifu's Mind Body Method today. Don't miss your chance to reset your life. Brett, so you brought something up that's very interesting, and you brought up social media. And I have a lot of friends who are in real estate, and they use it exclusively just to put their listings up, just to get more eyes on it. And
Sure.
how important is that for somebody, especially in a crowded space like New York City?
So I know a lot of the top agents in New York City, they don't have a good presence on social media.
Mm,
Unless they've been on TV. I'm talking about agents who do a lot of business. They're not really on TV or anything. and I see a lot of them, they're not on social media and they still kill it. And I also know a lot of agents who have massive followings in real estate in New York City, and they don't really do a lot of business. I'm not going to mention any names, so like,
Right.
we've talked about, some of the things. And so I do think it's really important to be on social media because it's not like you're going to get a client a day from it.
Right.
It's not like you're going to close 30 deals. I guess theoretically you could, but it's not like you're going to close 30 deals from social media in a year. It's just not realistic unless people already know you from everything else. So as I mentioned, it's really a resume. Like I've had clients go to my website or go to my Instagram after we met, after I show them a couple problems, like, oh my gosh, sorry, I know this sounds stalkerish, but I loved your video about XYZ, or I love how you're not just doing real estate, you're also focusing on the food aspect, interviewing other entrepreneurs in New York City. And so I've noticed that it really does help because they get to know you better. In real estate, I'm often very, 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 very serious. I don't joke around that much. But then outside of it, once we close and everything, that's when, the humor comes out and, they get to know me a little bit better. So those videos online are ways for people to, see I'm a real person. And
Mhm.
I've been told I should have more humor in real estate, because that's my natural personality. But when it comes to work, I'm often like, I'm just focused on, the serious aspect of everything. So,
Nice, nice. And that makes a lot of sense because, like you said, it may be one of the biggest investments they have in their portfolio.
mhm.
Um, when we think about the presentation, if you will, if you have a listing, um, how important is photography to be able to
Oh,
put
yeah,
it
it's
on the
so
MLM?
important. It is extremely important because you have to like, I mean, maximum exposure equals maximum profit for the seller.
Mhm.
And if you're not getting people into the apartment, you can't really sell what it is. I've heard sometimes people are like, oh, wow, I mean, the photos are better than the apartment. Well, guess what? I did my job because I got you here.
Right.
And I have had people sometimes say, I mean, the photos are way better, but they still like the apartment. And there are times where they come in here and they don't like the apartment at all.
Mhm.
But photos are so crucial because it gives people a chance to say, am I interested enough to see this in person? I don't like Matterport, at least in New York City, because the properties are often very small. Even if
Mhm.
they're $20 million, I mean, compared to what $20 million gets you anywhere else in the country, it's very small. So when you have Matterport and it's a virtual tour, people can find all the different reasons to not see it. And I think that getting photos, get them in there, and work on everything from there.
Mhm.
But photos are so crucial. I mean,
Right.
bad photos can make an amazing apartment look terrible
All right.
online.
Exactly. One of my brothers actually does professional photography for real estate, and he also uses drones.
Mm, yeah,
So he's
that's
brilliant.
amazing.
He starts
Yeah.
and he starts from the top. He goes over the area, and then he goes down, and then he goes into if it's a beautiful backyard. He goes through that. Then he goes throughout the whole house with a drone,
Oh,
and he does such an exceptional job. Um, how important is something like that compared to just pictures?
you don't see a lot of drones in New York City. It's also a lot more expensive
Not
to
in
have
New
that
York, right?
because you have to license all this stuff. I think the drone work is amazing. And because I've seen some videos, drone videos in New York City, and I think it's beautiful. Like you're seeing the whole skyline, you're seeing the apartment outside, or somebody's just standing outside. I love it. It's incredible. Um,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
I
mean,
mean, he's done where maybe because he's done stuff in New York as well, where maybe if it's a stairway up, he'll go start at the stairway, go up, the door opens, and then he goes through the apartment and so forth, and that's
that's
also
cool.
cool. Um,
Yeah,
so
I think it's a brilliant marketing strategy. It really makes everything come to life. You're getting it from above. It's moving around. I mean, I love it. Love it.
yeah, it's almost like you're walking through it, which I think that's the feel that he does. He does create that feel of I'm walking into the space. So now, do I actually want to be in the space, right?
Yeah.
You've done in your 15 years, and you talked about you started with rentals because that was a
Mhm.
good entry. Do you still do rentals?
So I'll represent from the tenants or from the landlord side to help people out, or if I have somebody who bought a property and they need to rent it out, something like that. I do a lot of, if you call it pro bono, I honestly I have people reaching out to me about rentals all the time.
Mm,
I mean, on average, maybe like half to one person a day.
mm,
So I will talk to people on the phone for free. I don't charge them anything. I just say, hey, this is what you really want one for if I think I can help. If it's friends, I'll go with them, sometimes not even as a real estate
right.
agent, just as a friend, and I'll give them feedback, bring my laser measure, kind of explain, hey, here are the differences of everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't really do much tenant rep side for rentals.
Right.
I just think it's different. I want to offer as much value as possible, and sometimes all I'm doing is walking them into an apartment. Do they like it or not? They're not buying it.
Right.
There's a lot of legal things that don't matter as much. If they don't like it, they can leave in a year,
Right.
and everything's there. It's not like, oh well, this property sold for this property sold for that.
Yeah,
For
it's
the
not
most
that.
part, wintertime, better time to rent, summertime, worst time to rent. The prices are very different, the fees are different. So
Oh, look at that. So the weather determines the price, huh?
it's not necessarily the weather, it's just the season itself. It's just common
Season.
to,
Got
like, if
it.
it's a gorgeous day in the wintertime, the price is gonna randomly go up. But like last winter, not this past one, but the previous one, I don't remember it being cold at all. Maybe my
Mm.
memory's not
No, no,
very.
you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and I mean, prices weren't necessary. I mean, they kept going up, but relative to the summer, it wasn't, crazy expensive.
Right.
Previous winters, yes, it was more expensive, but
Right. Right. Right.
yeah.
So, Brett, you've done a lot of work. You've helped a lot of people, and one of the things that you're always looking to do, from what I've gathered, is that you want to just help, right? Your mission
Mhm.
is to help, right? And real estate is one of your vehicles. And you do videos and you do all these different things to help people understand the market as well. Um, Real estate has created a life that you enjoy. Um, would you be able to talk to us about some of the lowest sales that you've done and some of the highest that you've done?
So the highest I've done is 23 million, and the lowest I've done, I think might be 170,000.
Mhm. That an apartment?
Yeah,
Right,
I
right,
have the info somewhere, something like that. Yeah, it was an HDFC. Um, yeah, and that was in Manhattan,
right, right.
in Upper
And
East Side.
the 23 million, that was an apartment in Manhattan?
Yeah, yeah,
Nice,
one
nice.
apartment.
I
So,
know, I know. Listen, I had a client of mine who this guy he created Stetson, he created Norma Kamali perfumes and all this stuff. He had his place on 57th and Sutton, and if you know that, you obviously know that neighborhood. Anybody who doesn't know it, that's like huge. And it was only two bedrooms, two apartments in this on the top floor. That's where he lived. And then he said, "Yes, by the way, I just bought the apartment next door. We're gonna make it one big penthouse." So I'm like, "Oh, congratulations!" And because he he had a car, he goes, "But I don't use it." Right? He had like the latest BMW at the time, and then he said, "I have it just whenever I feel like I want to take a 5-minute drive." He goes, "I hate driving in Manhattan." But he used to take a helicopter from the heliport to work every day, and he worked
hmm,
in Connecticut, right? Because his nose at that time, back in wow, what year was this? Um, Back in '99, his nose was insured for I don't know, $10 million or $20 million because he created all this incredible perfumes. But it just goes to show that the wealth is there and people can do whatever it is they want. So um, sometimes the question I'm coming back to is how important is it to keep the relationship after the sale?
It's extremely important. A lot of people, they just kind of forget about it. I often hang out with my clients, not every day,
Oh,
but
of course.
we stay in touch. We get together, I check up on them. It's important. You have to like not even just for business. For business, yeah, because they're gonna refer you people and help you, but just because it's the right thing to do, you
Mm,
know. Rentals were tougher to follow up with everybody.
right.
You would a couple months before, hey, are you moving soon? But with sales clients, I mean, they spend a lot of time with you. They invested a lot of money. Um, and big part is because of your help. So all those things, they come into play.
Right,
It's
plus
it's important.
referrals. I
It's
mean,
very crucial. Yeah.
most people are gonna buy something because of a referral. They're gonna use your
Yeah.
service because of it.
Mhm.
Brett, I gotta tell you, we can talk real estate probably for days, and but I know that real estate is not your only thing that you do because you do so much. I wanna thank you for the time that you took out today. I would love to have you on my other shows as well, being that I do
I'd love
only have,
to.
like, 7 shows, so
Only 7. I mean,
only
that's oh
7.
my gosh.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
hoping you'd get to 10, so.
One day, I'm not in a rush. But do us a favor, tell us, and I'm going to put your information across the screen. How can and what can people expect when they do connect with you? You have about 45 seconds, my friend.
Sure. So one, I am very, very quick to respond. Emails sometimes take longer, social media, but people who text me, get back to them right away or call me. Unless I'm on the subway, but I'll respond right after. But yeah, follow me on Instagram, the New York City Broker, just like this. And then my website, thenewyorkcitybroker.com. I love educating people, helping people out, love collaborations. Real estate's obviously my main job, but I like creating videos. I like learning about people, about different cultures, food, entrepreneurs. And I just think it's fun. I try and learn something new every day. I don't know if I do learn something new every day, but I do my best. So being introduced to a new industry or just new type of food or something like that, it's always exciting for me and just getting to know new people. I'm
Yeah.
very, very sociable. Like people stop me sometimes on the subway and I'll just start talking to somebody. If I'm not sleeping, I'll
Right.
talk to random people. And yeah, I mean, look, reach out to again, I'm very, very responsive, very sociable, personable, I hope, and but very responsive. Yeah.
Awesome. Listen, I have a bunch of friends in New York and Long Island and Jersey and so forth. I'm going to try to get a bunch of us together, and we'd love for you to be part of that as well.
That'd be amazing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, thank you so much for today. Truly appreciate you, everybody. Go to New York City
Sifu, thank you so
Brokers.com.
much. You're amazing. Everything that you do. 7 shows. I don't know how you do it. It's inspiring.
Well, I get to meet people like you. Why wouldn't I want to do it, right?
I
Thank
love
you,
it.
my friend.
Love it.
Have a
Have a
blessed day.
wonderful day. Appreciate your time.
Do me a favor. Don't go away. We're just going to say goodbye to everybody. And